The whole Pokemon vs Palworld battle continues to rage on, with the latest being that Nintendo may in fact be planning their case around the patent of a certain ball throwing mechanic, and while yes, Pokemon was the first to use this and could therefore be seen as its creator, it's extremely concerning that we live in a world where you can now patent a gameplay mechanic, especially in a medium such as gaming, which is built on iteration and innovation. I mean, imagine what the FPS genre would look like today if, back in the 90s, John Romero had patented Doom's first-person shooting. For over 3 decades though, Nintendo has been a titan of the gaming industry, bringing us some of the most beloved characters and franchises in gaming history. But behind the magic and joy lies a company that is fiercely protective of its intellectual property. Whether it's fighting piracy, protecting patents, or defending their iconic characters, Nintendo is relentless in the courtroom. And in today's video, we're going to be exploring some of Nintendo's biggest legal victories and defeats to gauge whether Pocketpair actually stands a chance of winning against the Big Nin. So from what I could find, the first notable legal battle involving Nintendo dates all the way back to the 1970s, during the earliest days of home video games. Magnavox, the company behind the very first home console, the Magnavox Odyssey, accused several companies, including Nintendo, of infringing on their patents for video game technology. Magnavox claimed that Nintendo's early console games, particularly Pong and similar titles, were based on their technology without permission. Rather than fight a lengthy legal battle though, Nintendo chose to settle out of court, and as part of the settlement, Nintendo agreed to pay licensing fees to Magnavox to use their patented technology. This case is notable though because it shows that even in the earliest days of the gaming industry, companies were grappling with the issues of intellectual property and patent protection, and it wouldn't be the last time that Nintendo found themselves in a legal battle over gaming technology. In 1982, Nintendo then found themselves up against Hollywood giants Universal Studios. Universal claimed that Nintendo's hit arcade game Donkey Kong was a blatant copy of the film character King Kong. They argued that the giant ape in Donkey Kong infringed on their copyright and demanded that Nintendo stop producing and distributing the game. But Nintendo fought back. In one of the most important legal victories in their history, the courts ruled that Universal did not have exclusive rights to the King Kong character, as it had been considered part of the public domain for some time. Furthermore, the judge found that there was very little chance of confusion between the King Kong movie character and Nintendo's Donkey Kong video game. This victory not only protected Donkey Kong, one of Nintendo's earliest successes, but it also established the company as a major player in the emerging video game industry. The case even earned Nintendo's lawyer at the time, John Kirby, a permanent place in the company's history, with the character Kirby apparently being named after him. Skipping forward a few years, our next case is a true throwback to the early 90s, when Nintendo faced off against Galoob Toys, the makers of the original Game Genie for the NES, a device which allowed players to cheat in their favourite games, altering the code to give players things like infinite lives, unlimited power-ups or other advantages. But rather than a way for players to get one up on these early hard-as-nails game releases, Nintendo saw the Game Genie as a threat to the integrity of the game, citing that it created derivative works in violation of copyright laws, and subsequently filed a lawsuit to stop its distribution. While Nintendo initially won a small victory, stopping production of the units in the US whilst the court case was pending, it was in fact Canada that came to the rescue, with the courts eventually ruling that Game Genie didn't actually violate Nintendo's copyright, and subsequently Galoob won the court case, with Nintendo paying $15 million in damages, which they also attempted to appeal but were unsuccessful. In the end, the case showed that whilst Nintendo was willing to go to great lengths to protect its games, not every battle could be a total victory. Not all of Nintendo's legal battles are about piracy or character infringement though. In 2008, Nintendo found itself in a battle over its hardware, specifically the design of the GameCube and Wii controllers. Anascape Ltd, a small Texas-based company, claimed that Nintendo's controllers infringed on their patents for analog stick technology. And this was no small matter for Nintendo, as both the GameCube and Wii were hugely popular at the time, and the same case was also brought against Microsoft, who reached a confidential settlement with Anascape. Initially, the court ruled in favour of Anascape, ordering Nintendo to pay $21 million in damages, but like many of its other legal battles, Nintendo appealed, arguing that the patent only covered single input members, and that ultimately Sony's DualShock controller, which released a few years prior, invalidated it, so over time they successfully reduced the financial penalties. This case though showed that even small companies could go after gaming giants, but Nintendo was willing to fight to protect its hardware innovations. And it's interesting that at the time people were labelling Anascape as patent trolls, when we appear to be seeing the exact same thing now coming from Nintendo. Similarly though, in 2017, Nintendo once again found themselves in a patent dispute, this time with iLife Technologies, a company that claimed Nintendo's Wii controllers violated the motion sensing technology patents, with iLife arguing that the accelerometers in the Wii remote were similar to the patented technology used in health monitoring devices. Once again, this case was initially a loss for Nintendo, with a Texas jury ruling in favour of iLife and ordering Nintendo to pay $10 million in damages. Nintendo, being Nintendo though, didn't give up. Through a series of appeals, Nintendo successfully overturned the ruling in 2020, completely dismissing iLife's claims, and this case showed that Nintendo wasn't just fighting piracy, it was also protecting the innovations behind their groundbreaking consoles, and it seems that even when the shoe is on the other foot, Nintendo's legal team knows no bounds, and if there's a loophole to be had, they'll definitely find it. In 2018, Nintendo went after two of the largest ROM websites on the internet, those being LoveROMs and LoveRetro. These websites allowed users to download and play pirated versions of classic Nintendo games, and for years, fans of retro gaming would flock to sites like these to relive the magic of the NES, SNES and other Nintendo classics. But for Nintendo, this was outright theft of their intellectual property. In July 2018, Nintendo filed a lawsuit against the website's owner, Jacob Matthias, and the legal consequences were severe. The case ended with a $12 million settlement in Nintendo's favour. The websites were shut down permanently, and Matthias was left with a heavy financial penalty, which, while he could never realistically pay the full $12 million in total, the victory set a powerful precedent. Nintendo wasn't willing to let anyone steal its games, no matter how nostalgic or small the community may seem. What really irks me about this one though is that yes, while these sites were undoubtedly breaking piracy laws, Nintendo themselves no longer produced any of these games and thus weren't making any money from the physical copies floating about out there. But on the same hand, they weren't producing digital copies for people to legitimately purchase. And when a copy of Super Mario RPG can set you back anywhere between $40 and $70 just for the cart alone, it's no wonder that these sites existed and continue to exist. And there also has to be something said for video game preservation in all of this. Have you ever wanted to race through the streets of Tokyo dressed as Mario or Luigi, living out your own version of Mario Kart? Well, back in 2018, a company called MariCAR thought they could make that dream come true, offering real-life go-karting tours where participants dressed up as Nintendo characters and raced through the streets of Japan. Sounds fun, right? Well, apparently not so much for Nintendo. In 2018, Nintendo sued MariCAR for copyright infringement, arguing that the use of the characters and imagery was unauthorized and damaging to the brand. The Japanese court ultimately sided with Nintendo, ordering MariCAR to stop using the characters, and MariCAR was forced to rebrand and remove any references to Mario Kart in the marketing. There have also been multiple examples where DMC takedown notices have been issued to fan art and fan game creators over the years, and this case demonstrated that even seemingly innocent uses of Nintendo's characters won't go unnoticed by the company. Moving on to 2021, we have one of Nintendo's most high-profile cases with its battle against Team Xecuter, a notorious hacking group that developed and sold mod chips which allowed users to bypass the security of the Nintendo Switch and, amongst other things, enabled them to install pirated games on the consoles, depriving Nintendo of millions in potential revenue. The ironically named Gary Bowser, one of the key members of Team Xecuter, was subsequently arrested and charged with various offences related to software piracy and illegal modding tools. But that wasn't all. Nintendo also filed a civil suit seeking damages for the loss of sales caused by Bowser's devices. In a major victory, Bowser was ordered to pay Nintendo $10 million in damages, and he was sentenced to over 3 years in prison, and this win was a huge step in Nintendo's ongoing war against piracy and showed how serious the company is about protecting its hardware. A year prior to this case though, Nintendo targeted UberChips, an Ohio-based website that also sold modding tools for the Nintendo Switch, with Nintendo quickly filing a lawsuit against UberChips and its owner, resulting in a settlement in which UberChips agreed to pay $2 million to Nintendo, and the website was promptly wiped from the internet. Again though, I think Nintendo were right for doing what they did here, but looking at the state of the Nintendo Switch eShop and the company's genuine lack of effort to exact any kind of quality control, continuing to allow games to be published with fake screenshots and descriptions, really makes me wish that I had one of these mod chips installed to enable me to maybe try before I buy. In 2021, Nintendo went after Dstorage, which operated the website onefisher.com. Unlike LoveRoms and LoveRetro, this platform was a file hosting service which allowed users to upload and share pirated Nintendo games, contributing to the widespread illegal distribution of the software, and Nintendo argued that Dstorage had a responsibility to monitor and remove infringing content from its platform. In a Paris court, the judges agreed with Nintendo, ordering Dstorage to pay over €1 million in damages, and this case marked another step in Nintendo's fight against online piracy, as the company targeted not just individual users, but also the platforms that enabled piracy to flourish. Finally, in 2021, Nintendo found itself in another patent dispute, this time with Japanese mobile game developer Colopl. Nintendo claimed that Colopl's mobile games infringed on several of their patents relating to touchscreen controls, revolving around the way in which players interacted with the mobile games, particularly a control scheme that Nintendo argued was first developed for use in Super Mario 64 DS. In a significant victory, Colopl agreed to settle the case for 3.3 billion yen, or roughly $30 million, and this case underscored Nintendo's willingness to defend its patents, not just in the traditional gaming sense, but also in the rapidly expanding world of mobile gaming. What makes this case particularly poignant in relation to the ongoing case against Pocketpair is that, according to one source that I found, Nintendo made amendments to the patents used against Colopl 5 years prior in 2016 to increase the chances of winning, and apparently since the launch of Palworld in January, they've once again been adjusting patents behind the scenes, creating child patents to better serve in the defence, and this potentially explains why they've taken so long to pull the trigger on Palworld. Whatever the case may be though, the question still remains to be answered. Does Nintendo have enough on Pocketpair to successfully win in court and either seek damages or potentially shut down Palworld for good? What's interesting about this current case though is that this kind of argument has played out before way back in the 90s with Pokemon and Digimon going head to head, and unsurprisingly a large amount of influence was taken from one another back then, even down to gameplay mechanics such as the egg hatching from Digimon, which would later be implemented into the second generation of Pokemon games. But the article I found on Pokemon vs Digimon is an interesting one and well worth a read. Regardless of the outcome of this court case though, I've played and enjoyed both Palworld and the Pokemon games, and I can't see why they can't just coexist, especially considering that whilst sharing some similarities with Pokemon, Palworld is a completely different beast altogether, and is more akin to something like Ark Survival Evolved than anything else that I've played. But I guess Nintendo sees them as a clear threat, and if there's anything we've learned from this video, it's that Nintendo don't take kindly to anyone infringing even the slightest on their intellectual properties or attempting to eat into the profits, and when it comes to protecting the magic that they've created, Nintendo always plays to win. That's all though for this video on 10 times Nintendo went to court and usually won. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, let me know by dropping a like and consider subscribing to the channel. But for now, thanks to the patrons of the channel for their ongoing support, and to you the viewers for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.